Afterthoughts with Shannon
and Marquita.
And today we are talking Sherlock, and this is season 3, episode 2, and this episode is titled His Last Vow. So, I watched this episode quite a few times, and I watched it again earlier today, because we originally saw it when it aired on BBC. So we rewatched it again today, and I actually think this is probably my favorite episode of all. After seeing it was so freaking funny. I enjoyed this episode. I mean, just a great deal. It was an extremely funny episode. We start off with what is that cop's name? Do you remember his name? It starts with an L.
The detective.
Yeah, the detective inspector. Starts with an L. I can't remember exactly his name, but that detective guy, he's on this hunt for this gang that keeps robbing banks. And then he gets an urgent message. He hasn't been able to arrest these people, so he wants to arrest them in the act. They finally get them in the act of robbing a bank. So the detective's going to go get all his glory in the public's eye. He gets an urgent phone call or urgent text messages from Sherlock, and he's just like, I need your help now. So he rushes across town, calls in the cavalry, all the cops come, and Sherlock's just sitting there with a guidebook for idiots on how to give a best man speech. So he pretty much asked the detective, help me with this speech. So then, boom, we shoot to the opening credits. So this episode is mainly about the wedding.
This episode is mostly about Watson and Mary's wedding. So, and the interesting part about the writing in this wedding is it's another example of what I would call their artistic way of writing, because they focus the episode around Sherlock's best man speech. And in the middle of this hour and a half speech, in the middle of his best man speech, he tells us a couple of stories. And one of the stories that he tells us is a quick, short interlude story about a guardsman who works at the castle who feel like he's being stalked. So he gets into, tells us a little brief background, and they go and they check out the guardsman to see his story, and about time they get to him, he's already down in the showers. He's been stabbed, and nobody's been in there. The door is locked, so it was a mystery that he had not been able to solve yet. So that was a story that we started off with, and I kind of enjoyed that one too, because I did really enjoy the guardsman who featured in this episode, because he was amazing to look at and great actor. So good little cameo right there. And after that, he continued in the speech, and after this story, he ended up going into another story of another mystery that's all going to tie in.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just going to focus on the speech for a second, because it was probably the best jargon, when he starts off, it's just big word, insult, big word, insult. And he pretty much insults the entire cast and crew of this wedding. Everyone in the wedding party insults every guest there pretty much, and then opens it up with the then ends it with this heartwarming pretty much detail on himself and how being friends with Watson makes him a better man. So everyone starts crying. So then he jumps into, okay, let's get into funny things. So during his speech he does enter 2 stories which tie along to the main mystery of this episode.
Yes.
And the first one is the one that she spoke of. Mm-hmm. So once again, he's telling stories about Watson and himself in a funny manner. So he gets to a story where they had their stag party. So I thought this was pretty interesting too, because he goes to Molly and asks her how they can get drunk without getting sick. So she does all these calculations. So when they go out to these bars, he's going to bars where they've found dead bodies, and they're taking these drinks, and he brings these graduated cylinders that for the exact amount of beer they need to drink at each bar so they can have a good time without getting sick. So at the end of this party, they go home. Not even a party. They go home. They're passed out on the stairs. And Mrs. Hudson comes in like, oh, you guys are home already? I thought you weren't coming until later. And he's like, what time is it? And they've only been gone for 2 hours. So they're shit-faced drunk. They've only been gone for 2 hours. They go upstairs. They're playing 20 questions with each other. Of course, Sherlock is himself. He's trying to guess himself, and it's pretty funny. Then they get a client. The client comes up, and they take this client knowing that they're super drunk. She thinks that she's dating a ghost. Some guy she was dating made her feel real good. He disappeared. She went to his flat. He wasn't there anymore. Apparently, the superintendent said that he had passed away. So while they're there at this deceased man's apartment, they're just they're drunk. They're just doing all kinds of bumbling buffoonery. They get arrested because Sherlock starts throwing up in the house. They get arrested. The detective inspector gets them out of jail. And then the gears start clicking. And Sherlock goes and he starts talking to all these women in a chat room about this man. So the composition on how this scene is set up, he's talking in the chat room, but in his mind palace, it's kind of like a congressional, like some type of congressional hearing room. So everyone, all the women are pretty much sitting in a type of circle, and he's like, you. He gets these women to tell them certain things, and he boils it down to a handful of women, and they each have something similar that this guy was after. So we later find out exactly what it is that they all have in common, and it's one of the wedding guests. They all work for a wedding guest that Watson didn't think was going to come, and it's his best friend from his war days. So yeah, it's his best friend from war days.
So so we have that the case that he was working on turns out that she's dating this guy who was dating a bunch of girls who were all connected to this colonel, and he was friends with Watson. And his quick backstory is they were in the field one day, and he led his team into a mission, and everyone died except for him and Watson. So he gets a lot of death threats from the families and friends of these people, fallen soldiers, who blame him for the deaths of their family. So this is what makes him realize that he's the one being targeted at the wedding, and it's definitely somebody at the wedding who is behind it. Due to the slip of the old tongue of the lady who came to him in the case in the first place. She knew too much information. Too much. Only information you'd know if you saw an invitation to the wedding. Mm-hmm. So therefore he was able to narrow it down that it was all going to go down at the wedding.
And this is during his speech. While he's thinking about these things.
Was not over-exaggerating about the length of the speech.
Yeah, the camera's flashing, and as soon as the camera flashed, that's when the gears start working. He drops the glass. By the time the glass falls out of his hand and drops on the floor, he knows that the murderer is here and someone's going to die here at this wedding. So it takes 10 minutes, it seems like, but it really only happens in a few seconds.
But that's another part of the writing that I really enjoy, because I like when they narrow in on showing you how Sherlock's mind works. And the best way to do that is to show you how much he can think of in a small amount of time.
And it kind of reminds me of Inception. You know how when you dream, when you're asleep, it could be 10 minutes, but it feels like a week. So I guess that would be how his mind works. It's like going into the third round of dream state. I don't know, but that's just my comparison.
So we're able to go ahead, and so Sherlock figures it all out. You know, we get to the bottom line. You know, he figures out it was the wedding cinematographer. You know, he was already heading on, but he got the detective to go track him down, brings him back. He already made his move on the sergeant, so they were able to go and talk him out of being able to just release it. He gives him a little slit right in the belt where the pressure is being held, and therefore, as soon as they take the belt off, the wound starts to bleed. So we were able to save the sergeant in time, which was well and good. So that was the whole plot of the summary, and we also get to go back to the wedding where we find out big news.
Yay,
about Watson.
That was the sign of 3.
The sign of 3.
So I thought that was
how cute.
What a great wedding gift. You know, I thought that was really cute because, I mean, for one, she's up there in age. Sorry. But, you know,
and she didn't really know.
She did not know.
So that was a cool little surprise to drop on them. Mm-hmm. You know, and what a happy wedding.
Yeah,
you know?
So once again, this is probably my favorite episode. I mean, I laughed so hard, especially the first 30 minutes. When he's giving his speech and he describes how when Watson explained or was trying to tell him or ask him to be best man and how he was just dumbfounded, but yet he's going through all, I felt this way, I felt that way, I couldn't believe he would ask me, but then when we shoot to what actually happened, he's just standing there like, huh?
You know, someone who doesn't have friends, you know, and it was awesome to see that he was that shocked,
right?
That someone would choose him to be in that role. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, it was very funny. So, enjoyed seeing the little boy. I guess he's supposed to be really great with kids, according to the books, because he takes on a bunch of, I guess, children in the book. So I guess that would correspond to his homeless network and the fact that he was really good with this young kid who supposedly everyone's talking about in the blogosphere that it's supposed to be young Sherlock or something. I don't know. But it was really cute how he handled the little kid, and the fact that the little kid pretty much put two and two together during the theories when they were at the dinner. So the little kid was like, well, how come it's not the Invisible Man with the Invisible Knife? So I thought that was pretty cute to kind of give him a little
jolt.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. As we both agreed, it was a great episode. I would give this episode, it wasn't one of my favorites out of all of the ones, but I did think it was a good, enjoyable episode when you watch it back and get to see all the detail. And again, I always give it to the writing because I love great writing. So I'll give this episode a B+. And it was honestly a good one. Another good one from old Sherlock.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, if this was a movie, it'd probably be one of my favorite comedies of the year, because I'm sorry, it was super hilarious to me. I kept laughing out loud several times. I enjoyed Sherlock being dumbfounded, speechless, and confused at times in this episode. I really enjoyed that. So I'm going to go ahead and give this episode actually an A+. I really enjoyed it. I think this would be my favorite episode to keep going back to.
Awesome. Well, there it is.
Yeah, so,
Sherlock, Season 3, Episode 2.
Yep, so please stick with us next week when we continue and finish off the season finale for Sherlock. But we've already recorded it, so if you want to, you can go check it out. But I'd wait till you've actually seen the show. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to jot them down there in the comment section. We will respond back, bad or good. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will be seeing you soon. This has been Afterthoughts with Shannon
and Marquita.
And we'll see you later. Bye.